And to think, I hesitated.
No, don't do that, movie. You can go to hell, because we're here to do Hellbound, Hellraiser II. Welcome back. Henrik, my dear co-host, say flick lap 10 times in a row. Go.
Nope. What's that then?
It's like, I realized that it's quite of a tongue twister. Try it yourself. Flick clap, flick clap. Yeah, I failed already. Anyway, how is my co-host Henrik?
Tired as hell, actually. and not feeling like doing an episode tonight at all. Like, at this point, I am in the point of being where I would rather staple my dick into a box of razor blades and eat that goddamn box rather than do an episode.
Sounds like something that Daniel Craig famously said after Spectre. Very good. You know, it's the Finnish honesty for you.
Yeah. We have gotten some feedback about the Finnish honesty here.
We have. Get into the ring, dear listener. But, yeah. What is this podcast? Well, it's an international film podcast, meaning we do tend to watch a lot of international films. The kinds of films, you know, made out of the United States, which is not international.
It's not also the second gimmick, which is the Bond marathon, which we are also doing.
Welcome on board. This is the kind of film podcast where we scrutinize whether it's actually conceivable to hide a portal to hell inside your mattress.
Yeah, and you only have to ask why. Like, in God's name, why?
Well,
this is the opening lines of the episode where you usually propose the question, why did we watch today's film? And I have to really, like, I have to be honest here, I have no goddamn clue why we watched Hellraiser 2. Because I harken back to the old Vitanen Entertainment and Networks days, when I was all about Hellraiser, and you came out and you stated that you never actually liked the series. And that was that. I was completely fine with that. And then we started, years later, we started this podcast. And all of a sudden you mentioned, like, well, we could do Hellraiser episode. And I was like, yeah, well, we don't have to. we can postpone it. We don't have to. I remember you don't really like it, so let's do something else. And you are on my back that, no, let's do Hellraiser. And eventually, finally, you know, after being clubbed almost to death verbally by you about doing a Hellraiser, we finally do the Hellraiser episode. Which came to bite us in the ass in the Facebook comment section, but, you know, what can you do? And after that, I thought that, well, this is it. Now we've done it, and we are free of Hellraiser, and there is no need for more Hellraiser. And then, all of a sudden, some time passes, and all of a sudden you start to be once again like, well, we could do the sequels. We could do more Hellraiser. We could do the Hellraiser franchise. And once again, I'm trying to push back against this. I'm trying to sweep it under the rug best I can. I'm postponing the Hellraiser sequel episodes, and I'm pushing on that we don't have to actually tackle those. And, well, after the second one, the series gets kind of bad, so we can just avoid, you know, touching the franchise anymore. And once again, you goddamn start to hamper around that we should do Hellraiser sequels and we should do the franchise. And, well, you know, dig me. Here we are today, touching Hellraiser 2.
Henrik, who is a well-known Hellraiser fan, which I am not really. When I saw these films originally, I was not that much impressed about the extremely dark world of the films. But Henrik, I actually do. I actually do like the first two films, and I even have a certain kind of a soft spot for a few, frames, shots of the third one.
Get the fuck up.
Yeah, but it has a Cenobite throwing CDs.
I loathe you so much, man.
I'm doing this for you, goddammit. We're watching these films to make this more pleasant for you.
I have as a personal present to you, I have been avoiding Hellraiser films on this podcast the best I can.
Well, tonight it's Overlord Karri, me, who is taking over again with the decisions here. And it's we will see how long this will go and how long we can stomach this for the time of the holidays to make things easier for us.
Yeah, but they ain't all worthless. The rest of the sequels, like there are some which are okay, and some that have kind of good ideas in them, but after today's film, after Hellbound, it kind of the franchise becomes this minefield of bad movies.
Every movie has some redeeming qualities, right? Except Halloween Resurrection.
I think we are going to, like, even with Hellraiser franchise, we are really trying and pushing that hypothesis you propose.
I haven't even seen all of these sequels because I got so tired at, I don't know, number 7 was it? Years and years ago.
What was that?
Deader, maybe.
Deader, yeah. Well, if you got off the franchise after Deader, it's all the best to you. Good for you, because after that it was Hellworld and Revelations.
Yeah, like there's like a double meaning, kind of a enduring theme at least with these films. It's all about the suffering.
Yeah, that it is. That it is.
Well, about this film, when did we first see it? Must have been about 2000-ish.
Yeah, somewhere around there, because I originally got to see this after the censorship ban on movies got lifted in Finland, and we finally got, like, R-rated material legally in the stores.
Before that, the entire Finland was just watching movies.
We have some really spectacular examples of the censorship policy of the heydays. Like, for example, the Finnish release of Burning, which has all the violence cut out of it. And it's basically it's once again it's like Friday the 13th rehash. Yeah, your typical summer camp slasher horror film where the violence and the gore effects are pretty much like the main thing. And in the Finnish version, all of the gore is cut off.
I understand that Hellbound was also heavily on the cutting board in Finland and in around the world.
I somehow can see how that very well could be the case. Seeing how exactly violent and gory the uncut version of the film is.
Kind of, if you consider gory something that is done to wax and dolls.
I don't know. There still are some sequences in the film that actually make me squirm.
Well, yeah, it's been quite a long time since I've seen this film. I had lost a lot of details of this film, like how it goes. I could only remember very vividly the hell itself with its elaborate labyrinths. That was the biggest image that comes to my mind when I think about this film every time. But I had completely forgotten how much is going on here and how much of an incoherent movie this can sometimes be. I will be very forgiving though, Henrik.
Yeah, I also, like, since you mentioned it, that the fact is that Hellraiser 2 is quite hard to follow at times. And there is a lot of scene changes and plot events that happened that are really not that strongly laid out, and which do appear quite incoherent when you are looking at the film.
Clive Barker has returned as an executive producer. The uncredited editor of the first one, Tony Randel, is the director. He was put on the director's seat for Hellbound due to his experience with the first one by a producer, I understand. It is understood also that the film was going to have a much bigger budget, but New World Pictures was in financial troubles and the budget was heavily slashed on the way. Hence, I would say a lot of the effects are very similar to the first one.
Yeah, something that may have affected the budget of the film is a lot of the production changes that happened behind the scenes before the shooting started. Like, for example, Michael McDowell from the Beetlejuice writing fame was originally supposed to both write and direct the film. But just before the project could get off the ground, Michael's partner was diagnosed with AIDS. And for understandable reasons, Michael then backed out of the project.
Diagnosed for HIV.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Actually, the film was initially rated X, and there was some cutting room floor involved after that. Public opinion of the film is also kind of wavering, rather mixed. And maybe we will find out why when we get to the film. Would it be scene by scene?
Sure, yeah, why not?
Alright. It has a great soundtrack. Like, it's more fleshed out, if you pardon the term. Captain Elliot Spencer tries to perform Seance. It would have been great to see him actually to be taken by the Cenobites on screen, but Christopher Young has returned to do the soundtrack. Also known from this podcast from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Hellraiser 1, and now Hellraiser 2.
Yeah, and this time, doing the soundtrack to Hellraiser 2, it is more bombastic than it was in the first one.
It is. It's more theatrical, more bombastic, as you said. I feel I like this soundtrack more. It has better energy. And I feel it feels less restrained, like the artist is able to relax and kind of understand what he's about to do right now.
Less restrained is an interesting depiction on how the soundtrack actually feels, because there is kind of something that also plays very strongly behind the scenes and making of the film. Because when you compare these two, when you take Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2 kind of a side to side, Hellraiser 1 is, as a film, it's much more restricted and much more controlled than Hellbound. But then again, on the production side, the situation is kind of completely reversed, where the shoot of the original was very chaotic, and now Tony Randel on the helm, the shoot was reportedly much more controlled and kind of more laid back than it was back in the Clive Barker director days.
That's okay, the guy was doing his first film, right?
And the guy is doing his first film here also.
Oh yeah, Tony Randel. But he had previous experience.
He had some experience, but he didn't have experience on actually controlling a film production.
Yeah, he produced the Americanized Godzilla remake, Godzilla 1985. It was based on the Japanese film The Return of Godzilla, and like mentioned, was kind of supervising the first Hellraiser production. And Steve White, the New World's president, then gave the green light for Randel to direct Hellbound. And it seems like, like has been stated somewhere, Tony Randel's views on what Hellraiser is about come pretty strongly on the screen. And I feel that, yeah, it's very imaginative, very strong in its visual telling, could be also thanks to the DP. All in all, I can already say that I enjoy a lot of the graphic scenes here.
Hellraiser 2, or Randel's film, even though from the story perspective it was, as I've come to understand, very heavily supervised by Barker himself, who did not take actual part in the screenplay, in writing the screenplay, that goes to Peter Atkins. But Atkins, at least to my knowledge, Atkins was at the time working very closely with Barker, who came up with the most of the story and was kind of behind Atkins's back and guiding him through the screenplay process. But Randel's film still is, at least in my opinion, it is much more darker than what was the first one, which was pretty damn dark already on its own rights. But Randel's film is much more animalistic and I feel more nihilistic in its kind of a tone.
We have Oliver Smith returning as the guy who played Skinless Frank in the original. He's back here. Also plays the I am in hell, help me character, which is Frank, and the mental patient
which is Frank.
And the mental patient with the delusional parasitosis. So the Andrew Robinson, the daddy, the MacGuffin of the film, he did not reprise his role as daddy. There were some daddy issues. It's a bit of a mystery what happened in every aspect, but there was an alternate script where daddy would have been in the script. Here the daddy is... Andrew Robinson was rumored to not get a good enough financial offer for his return. Some were suggesting scheduling issues, but it's been already kind of revealed, at least part of it, in the documentary Leviathan, the story of Hellraiser and Hellbound, Hellraiser II, where Robinson stated that he was not a big fan of the script and decided to simply skip this film. And the writer Peter Atkins was pleased with that information because it made the narrative work better for the final product, in his opinion. I'm not sure if it did, but...
Cutting off the character of Larry from the film might have actually served the film itself better. Like, once again, it removes one of those tying anchor points into the previous movie, and this way, it makes the character of Larry even more of a MacGuffin here. Because the big payoff at the end of the story arc is that Larry was Frank all the time. But it at the same time, it also kind of lets Hellbound be more of its own beast that does not have to carry the load of a returning character of Larry. And those ties that the character of Larry would have brought with him. Outside of basically the returning characters in here, I guess the most well-known would be William Hope, who played Kyle McCree, and I guess would be perhaps most well-known for his appearance as Lieutenant Gorman in Aliens.
Oh yeah, right, that's true. Yeah, we get to the hospital scene, we see Kirsty once again. Kirsty utters to the police, "Who the fuck are you?" I'm sorry, sometimes I forget my manners. But Mr. Policeman, so did she.
Yeah, well, but one is a police officer and the other is a traumatized victim. So I would say that you know, some leeway may be given to Kirsty here.
Yeah, we got to the moment where we see the mattress at the attic. It's still there. Cops finding and looking for evidence, which is now working as the portal to hell this time. There are scenes about brain surgery. The way that you see this scene developing with these two doctors, it seems that these are two scientifically skeptical minds who are going to see Kirsty, and now they are in for a surprise that this woman is completely crazy going on about the boxes, and they would then see the boxes, but no, the other doctor here, senior doctor, actually has a collection of these boxes at home and has been studying this whole box phenomena for years, which is of course a little bit too convenient.
On my end, I don't know about that.
Or not, you know, this doctor has presumably made it so that he will be in touch with Kirsty for this very reason.
Yeah, this is once again, this is one of those moments where it kind of becomes hard to exactly decipher how much of the so-called Hellraiser lore is original lore and how much is elements that have been implemented into the lore after the first two stories. Like how much of the elements are production of Clive Barker's vision and how much comes from others who have done comic books or later sequels into the franchise. But one of the running themes that have surfaced after the first film and have really played a prominent part in the franchise in the later comic books and in the sequels is that there are several kind of gateways and several ways to open the doorways to hell, and not just like it was presented in the original film, just one box which you have to hunt for and then find in order to summon the Cenobites. And kind of you see the groundwork for this more complicated network into hell being laid out here in Hellbound, with the way how the hell itself operates, and also with the fact that, for example, the film shows you that there are several puzzle boxes.
Yeah, but doesn't it stay exactly the same? Because we have, instead of an attic, we have a mattress which has blood, and if you drip some more blood into it, then you can open the portal for, this time for Julia instead of Frank, and if you touch the box in the correct way, then you will unleash the Cenobites, which is exactly what happens here with Tiffany and Pinhead.
It is at times, so like in those examples that you gave. Yes, it is. But at the same time, there are also smaller, more subtle elements that kind of already start to hint in the direction that there is something way more going on, but both in hell and also outside of it. Like, for example, the whole later part of the film and what happens with the character of Dr. Channard.
Yeah, Dr. Channard just walks into hell with Julia, right? Without using the box. Is that what you are looking for?
No. Or partly yes. Like, this is once again something where the franchise, especially in the later parts, can kind of decide what it wants to do. But in a way, Channard does indeed use the box to actually get into hell. He just uses Tiffany as a proxy to operate it. But basically, the whole concept of Leviathan, the whole concept of hell having a god, and the kind of a hinted notion that there is some kind of an inner power struggle going on within hell itself. The way how Leviathan kind of embraces Channard, turns him into a Cenobite that then attacks the original 4 Cenobites. And the whole duel they are going to have later in the film. That all kind of hints and leads into the direction that the franchise has gone more strongly in the later parts, and especially in the comic book region.
Well, it took me as a surprise that Channard and Pinhead would be battling against each other, but then again we're talking about hell, so I suppose no rules, and suffering has to continue in most creative ways, even inside hell.
Even inside hell, because, and once again, like I said, it's hard to say how much of this is actually purely Hellbound and how much this is Clive Barker's original vision and how much this is from those who have come after Barker into the franchise. But for example, the inner power struggles and occasional civil wars within hell itself is a plot element that has had a huge significance in Hellraiser franchise. And partly you can see that already in here with Channard and Pinhead. It is not yet on the same scale that it is, for example, in the modern comic book run, where it's like real armies and battle lines within hell regions, but you kind of can see the first steps taken into that direction if that's how you want to read them.
Yeah, I also see funny parallels with Halloween 2, for example. First we are introduced to the Kyle McRae, the younger doctor, And this is in a way Halloween 2 situation. You have a hospital where they take the main protagonist to be in the caring hands of a cute male doctor or assistant with which she has kind of a fling or some kind of affection going on. And they heroically fight the bad guy together.
That, and later on when they finally reach hell and Tiffany kind of visits her own personal version of hell. And there is, for example, there is that one clown who is juggling with his eyeballs, and there is a close-up on the blind clown's face, like into his eyes. In that close-up, when you have that front shot of the clown's eyeballs bleeding blood, it actually looks remarkably like a William Shatner mask from Halloween.
I noticed the same thing. Yes, indeed.
Not so that we would once again be masturbating over individual frames and one-shot images, but this is the flick lab.
That it is, and then we're introduced to Tiffany, who is, quote, a complete mystery, as she never speaks and just keeps shuffling boxes of all kinds. She solves puzzles, and Kirsty doesn't accept the sleeping pills from Kyle, and we are introduced to the Frank, actually, who writes on the wall, "I am in hell, help me with blood." Followed by with this weird shot where Kirsty is actually putting the blood on her lips. Why? What's wrong with you?
Well, she was brought into the institution right from the weird murder house of the first film. I'm quite sure that she did not have the time to take her lipstick with her. Yeah, I mean, it's not the best alternative, but girls gotta do what girls gotta do.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Looney Cellar is something that we got to a couple of times. The doctor's checking out potential candidates to be sacrificed for Julia.
Also, one thing to note with the Looney Cellar is that when you look at how the floors are named within the elevator, they go ground, basement, and then beneath basement there is the Looney Cellar.
Okay, is this drawing actually Halloween 4 parallels now? We got a Looney Cellar, and that's about it.
Well, we do have in the Looney Cellar, we do have that one boat guy who is desperately trying to banish the ultimate evil, the one who is holding the cross and who has tattooed or drawn crucifixes into his head.
Kirsty says that she has had a visitor to Kyle. Father is suffering in hell, or so she believes. That's kind of a weird that once again Kirsty is completely fooled by Frank. Kind of a brainless activity going on right here.
In Kirsty's defense, there is no way that she can at that point yet tell that it's Frank who is sending the message. Like, to our listeners who have not seen the film, in a previous Kirsty scene, Kirsty is being visited by a mutilated corpse. Like a body that has been skinned. There is no skin, she can only see the muscles and the raw tissue. And from that messed up bundle of flesh, you can't really say, if it would be Frank or if it would really be her father.
No worries, dear listener, if you haven't seen the first one, because this beginning of the film is so filled with flashbacks from the original that it would be kind of hard not to get on board with this one without watching the first one.
That it is. And I kind of even, like that. Because while the previously on Hellraiser segment is kind of a redundant for us, since we have seen previously the first one, it still is reminiscent of the times before all the cinematic universe nonsense, when movies were allowed to just be, individual movies, and if you made a sequel that still was an individual movie, that sequel would kind of have to have this what happened in the first film segment in order to both remind the already existing audiences, but also to get the new audiences on page with the sequel.
And, dear listener, are you guessing what is the MacGuffin of this film? Interestingly, it is Rory, the father, even though we never get to this MacGuffin, but Rory, the father, is the character that is completely driving the motivation of Kirsty and driving this film. And we never get a conclusion. It's like a very Alfred Hitchcockian version of a MacGuffin in the sense that, like Hitchcock said, MacGuffin, paraphrasing, like MacGuffin is to him something that is driving the plot, but is not really interesting to the audience itself. Well, it could be said about this one. I don't really give a frog's fat ass what is happening to the father, but that is driving the film.
I guess nobody really is looking at Hellraiser 2 to find out what happened to Kirsty's father.
No, maybe a few nuns that came to watch the first one.
I somehow doubt that any nuns would have seen a film called Hellraiser. Especially since the film has a weird nails in his head, BDSM bondage dude in the poster.
And bondage is what you get, and we get to the house of the Janard, the other senior doctor. Not only do we have this crazy doctor who is very involved with the boxes, but also the other kind of a very incredulous idea put on forth here, that is that the younger doctor, somehow based on a partial phone conversation, goes to the flat of Janard to find out more what is wrong with this dude. And also, the third absolutely ridiculous connection or plotline that this guy, the senior doctor, just simply makes some kind of a call and he's able to acquire this mattress. Dude, I need some more information here.
Well,
this is an active crime scene.
Well, Janard needs the mattress from police evidence locker in order to help his patient.
For God's sakes.
Like, wouldn't you handle police evidence to basically any shrink that simply calls to you and says that, hey, I really need that piece of evidence for sciences. But yeah, Kyle breaking into Janard's house, I felt that was way more believable than Janard actually getting his hands on the mattress. Like when Kyle hears that partial phone conversation and based on that decides that he has to, in the end, essentially break into his boss's home. That actually took me less suspension of disbelief than the notion that Janard was indeed able to have the mattress transferred into his home.
And very convenient, just immediately after Kirsty has been suffering these traumatic experiences. Lo and behold, we have a Dr. Janard. Here we go. Alright, well, maybe Janard heard about this incredible happening at the house and was intrigued and wanted to take care of Kirsty to find out more.
Well, the film very heavily hints that actually is precisely what's going on with Janard.
Yeah, we have more flashbacks and then the doctor has now taken the mattress to home and he has a bunch of weird material at the house, like children of the vortex, puberty linked to psychic phenomena. Mentally disturbed dude cuts himself on the mattress that the guy has invited to his home on the mattress. Kyle almost gets busted. Julia returns. Janard's obsession with the box is introduced a bit haphazardly, maybe. Well, there is no building up to it, in my opinion. It's just there. And similarly, Kyle breaking into Janard's flat makes zero sense still, given that what we know about these characters prior. But okay, I'm willing to accept that because I'm having fun with the bloody Julia here.
I kind of can see Kyle's reaction here. Kyle is obviously reacting to hearing a detailed account of what happened to Kirsty and then trying to find some logic for Janard's obsessive behavior towards the crime scene mattress. So in that sense, I can understand that Kyle at that point decides to break into Janard's home.
Nah, not buying it.
I don't know. I mean, the man wants police evidence for no apparent reason. And he also somehow wants to hide the fact that he gets his hands into the mattress, hence the fact that he asks precisely that the mattress is to be brought to his home and not into the sanitarium.
Except all that you hear about the conversation over the telephone is that something like, no, not to the hospital, to my home. Thank you, gracias, bye, clack. So based on that, he's at the house now.
Yeah,
no word about mattress.
I mean, asking weird murder mattresses into your home, I would be kind of suspicious also.
Okay, but he's making a connection with the mattress. But okay, yeah, okay. Kirsty mentions it before. True. Never mind then.
Just so that you know, if you ever tell me that you have been buying weird murder mattresses out of eBay, I too will start seriously considering on calling the cops on you.
Will you be sneaking up on my house in Warsaw?
If I just happen to be on the neighborhood, then most definitely, yeah. I might not be interested enough to actually buy myself a ticket to get into Poland, but you know, if the circumstances are right, you can bet your sweet ass off that your back door will be busted open mysteriously when you get home.
Will you buy the plane ticket if I have Cenobites here?
Well, that of course is completely different matter.
A lot of weird shit is happening in these films. Like, this is the least of it, but Julia is now dressed up in the white costume and there is kissing going on. I believe it's just Julia's ham-fisted attempt to make Jannard feel something towards Julia, which I think is not working for Jannard. He's just going with he's just playing along to get more answers because he needs to know every goddamn thing.
I don't know, I took it that there actually is some kind of a perverse sexual tension between Jannard and Juliet.
Well, could be kind of reflecting on the Frank Julia thing.
It kind of is mirroring that situation, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a relationship without actual feelings. It's more about the... even though you are seeing like a girl who is just covered in blood and doesn't have even the skin on yet, there is some kind of a extreme, lusty sexual tension going on.
Are you not trying to imply that skinned women won't get you hard? There's something seriously wrong with you, man.
I once went to Pornhub and it didn't work.
But see, you made the mistake. You didn't go into the skinned woman section. You need a premium access pass to actually to get into those kind of videos. That's all that I would know from personal experience, but my friends have been telling me.
Okay. Kyle is willing to assist Kirsty in this great adventure against the evil Dr. Jannard. Kirsty makes the notion that Kyle really doesn't have to do this, but what does he do? He does this. And he knows that, and the moment gets kind of a rapey-ish. Kirsty and Kyle are in the hospital. Yeah, Kyle puts his hand on the face of Kirsty. Kind of an uncomfortable moment. But I was happy to see that Kyle is being exited from the film quite fast.
Surprisingly fast, actually.
Yeah.
Seeing how much time the film actually uses to build up Kyle or to have him around, and how long the plotline of the film hangs on Kyle actually kind of driving the action forward, being the one who does the detective work, and kind of he's the only one who collects clues on what is happening at the sanitarium.
I felt that the film was being really efficient here, that we get rid of this character, and after that I was definitely with the film. Not that I wasn't before, but yeah, this is like... Do you know this German horror film where there is the main character, the mother of two boys, I believe, and she looks like Julia, like face nicely packaged because she has had some kind of a surgery on the face.
I guess you are referring to Good Night Mommy. If you are talking about the film where the mom has been... the mom has been to a hospital to get some kind of a operation done to her, and she comes back home all bandaged up, and the two boys become convinced that the mommy has been changed into someone else, that there is another person or being that simply claims that she is their original mom.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the film. If you have a chance to check it out, dear listener, please do.
It was okay. I wasn't with the movie completely to the end.
Yeah,
I felt that the original premise was interesting, and there was a lot that they could have done with it, but once it gets more to the more hallucinatory and more kind of trying to be brain twisty ending of the movie, I kind of started to lose my way with the movie at that point.
I'm with you. The victim actress in Hellbound is kind of bad at the attic, or it's not really an attic. Considering she should know exactly what's awaiting for her, and considering the amount of bodies that she's surrounded with, the first shot at her is like, just chilling, and then in the next image, kind of screaming in terror. Julia is full again, or almost full. There's still Kyle to take out. Kirsty and Julia meet. Good quotes. Now I'm not only the evil stepmother, I'm the evil queen. Tiffany is brought into play with the box. So, the obvious question for an audience here is, what is Julia plotting at this moment? And why would she want to open the box at all? And wouldn't the Cenobites come for Julia? Later, of course, we find out that no, because Julia somehow blindly believes in making a deal with the Leviathan, just delivering some victims to hell. And so they are all good. And she's happy to be where she wants to spend her time most.
Well, like Julia says, she is now the queen of hell. Like, this is, once again, like previously mentioned, this is the kind of laying the groundwork for the later franchise themes of the Civil Wars and the more complex hierarchical systems within the hell itself. It also kind of leans into where the franchise itself was going on. Back then, the idea being that they would kind of finally get rid of Pinhead, and they would change the main antagonist of the franchise into Julia, and Julia was supposed to become the kind of a great evil of the later Hellraiser sequels.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to that idea. Sounds pretty decent.
Well, it was kind of a combination of two things. The first one is that, well, Clare Higgins herself, even though she never actually regretted being in Hellraiser, but after Hellbound and between the movies, Claire kind of expressed her interest in starting to appear in movies where she can play more kind of emotional characters and appear in movies that are not so violent and so dark that as the Hellraisers had been. But more notably, I still believe that Clare Higgins would have been open to reappear in the franchise and continue playing her character. But more than that, the case was that the franchise and its fans really glued into Pinhead. And Pinhead, for obvious reasons, was the one who, from pretty much from all the characters within the franchise, is easily the most iconic. Is the easiest to turn into an iconic horror figure. So when Hellraiser 3 was in the planning process, the producers and the production company quite soon actually disregarded the whole idea of having Julia to be the franchise main villain, and instead kept the focus on Pinhead.
Yeah, when it comes to characters, I find that the Dr. Channard here is very strong as a Cenobite. And I'm quite surprised that, according to what I know, the character was never ever used again in the franchise. Of course, it's pointless if you don't have the same actor, really. But I could see that there was a lot of creativity still going on there. I'm not saying that this should be any kind of a main character, but with Pinhead, I think it would have made a quite powerful couple.
The possibilities sure are there, especially when you look at where the franchise went from here. and they got kind of a downward spiral that opened after Hellbound.
Yeah, like common sense should have prevailed here. Just hold on to your best characters. Make the best out of several characters. You could have brought in Julia, Pinhead, and Jannard, and I don't know, maybe Kirsty as well.
Kinda, yeah. Of course, it's hard to say where the franchise would have gone in that case. Like how you would have continued to build up the franchise with that set of characters. Because with Hellraiser 3, you kind of already in the first Hellraiser, and in most definitely in Hellraiser 2, you kind of see exactly how limited Pinhead is as a character. Like, he is a character that doesn't really have a motive to appear on any of the sequels, especially after Hellbound. And in Hellbound, Pinhead and the original 4 are for max 20 minutes, if even that much. So to keep Pinhead in the franchise, you kind of would have to find new ways to find a motivation for him and new ways to justify for his existence in the franchise. And as we see in Hellraiser 3, that is something that, well, the franchise really was not capable of doing. Hence the whole, the complete bastardization and rewriting process of the character.
Them breaking their own rules of the franchise pretty heavily, as I remember. And not only that, but kind of making Pinhead their main attraction of Hellraiser 3 kind of incapacitated for the first half of the film, as far as memory serves. And after Hellbound Hellraiser, moving on to Hellraiser 3, the only attraction in the amusement park here is Pinhead. The whole film is being carried with Pinhead.
It is, and it is really a shame because it kind of tells you that from the production company's side there really was no courage in the producers. Because Pinhead as a character, he is something that works great as a concept, but he is not something that you can actually build a franchise upon.
Yeah, it seems like, once again, like absurd levels of laziness from the production company, where we have a situation where it seems that we are willing to cut the budget as much as possible to make cheap horror with low effort to get the maximum possible gain out of these franchise characters, milking the material as easily as possible with the minimum risk. So the Cenobites arrive because Tiffany has opened the box. It's very sad to see they replace the girl Cenobite actor, because that was one of my clear favorites from the original. Somehow her face was really matching. Like, I really liked her face as a Cenobite there. And the juggler, or whatever it is, the Chatterer. Nicholas Vince requested eyes for the character of Chatterer to help his vision. It gets a little confusing because there's a scene removed where he would somehow receive his vision, if we are to trust some sources. So this created confusion, since the first time we see the Chatterer here, he is still without his vision, and then with vision. Hell. Interesting vision of hell, to be sure. This always worked for me, somehow, even though it's not very traditional at all. You would be thinking of hellfires and all that, but you see an endless maze or labyrinth.
I would guess that is precisely the reason why it works so well, because it's not traditional. It's not kind of laying back into the so often used visuals and tropes and cliches of what the Western, very Christian hell often is perceived to be as. And instead, in here, it's a place of its own. And it's something that you haven't yet seen. And I would say that also, going away or shying away from the Christian imagery and from the whole hellfire aspect of your typical hell. I even believe that is something that made it possible and also forced the filmmakers to be more inventive with their presentation of hell.
I feel a lot of odd connections pulling me when watching this film. There was this Michael Myers mask, which looks like at least one. There was the connection that I could see with Halloween 2. There was the loon cellar of Halloween 4 in a sense. I got that flashback anyway. And there's also the Nightmare on Elm Street 5, the dream child kind of baby. We see this infant baby sometimes on the screen.
And revisiting Halloween franchise itself, like as a franchise, also is a hell of an experience.
Always wanted to do that. I think we have to do that at some point, since there is going to be at least 2 sequels now lined up for our viewing pleasure.
I think when it comes to Halloween and our listeners, we have tormented the poor bastards enough already.
Have we though? It's just a sadomasochist talking. Kirsty and Tiffany wandering around. Suddenly Kirsty is in a room and sees a photo of her mother. Then is all smiles for a second there. But blood starts dripping and all goes to, well, hell again. There are a lot of these white platforms that are moving back and forth. And on top of these platforms are apparently bodies of deceased people. Or as it's put, I believe in the film, they are ghosts of some kind. When they are being touched, they disappear from vision.
They are some kind of a hallucinations or something like that. Because they are very specifically for Frank. Like, all those quote-unquote bodies are... They are something that are put there to torment Frank. Which on itself kind of is telling of the character of Frank, since this is his part of hell, where he is supposed to kind of meet this torment, and what that torment in the end is for Frank is being constantly being teased with sex and never getting any.
Hell seems to be a place of rooms that really don't make any cohesive sense in any way. Would it be the kind of place where I would, build my base? Since you can't even trust anything here, it seems that everything is once again possible here. And Frank seems to be stupid enough that even though that he seems to be enjoying this place, I would consider it as some kind of a home of his. He doesn't care that Kirsty is taking the blanket and throwing it into the candle to start the fire, and the inevitable waxification of Frank, followed by Julia coming into the scene and giving Frank the same line that Frank gave him before. Nothing personal, babe.
I never got the impression that Frank in any way was enjoying where he was.
Probably not, but he was kind of a dummy. Didn't take control of the situation.
Well, he was trying to take the control, but he was distracted by Kirsty's feminine wilds.
Yeah, and then Julia's, and rips the heart out of Frank. Tiffany and Kirsty escape. At this point, the box has been shape-shifted into this item that seems to be the symbol of Leviathan in the center of hell.
Yeah, this diamond shape.
Yeah.
Object.
And Dr. Channard now, after being put into the torments of hell by Julia, re-emerges as the evil Dr. Channard, with some pretty cool lines and great appearance, and also nice voice effects on him. I absolutely love the voice of the dude. It's very menacing, and plus all those stop motion animated tentacles that he has, which are very creatively made. I feel that the whole stop motion kind of adds a lot to the creepy factor of the character.
I would say so also.
Mm.
Like, there is something when you actually can really see that the effects you are seeing are practical. Even though the stop motion is a bit wonky, it's not completely seamless at times. Especially on the close-ups on the tentacle, you kind of can see the motion building up. You can see the stops in stop motion. But it's still well, for me, it still works for a great effect.
I'm kind of amused by the fact that Kirsty thinks that she can actually challenge Hell, Leviathan, or the Cenobites in a world that kind of de facto doesn't seem to be making much sense. But she does come on top of things at the end anyway. Is creative enough to put the skin of Julia on her to cheat Dr. Channard, which is kind of cool. But you know, there are no rules here. How do you know where you're running to get out of hell? When do you know that everything is sealed? Why does Julia get sucked by the air vortex? Why does Julia lose her skin now? What is happening to Julia? And why is there blood dripping from behind the pictures? All these kind of questions, and what are these ghosts? And it feels like we have said before, maybe there's some cohesiveness lacking here, or
I was not actually bothered by that. In case of Hellraiser 2, like
I wasn't bothered by that. I was kind of.
It's very clearly it is kind of it is a conscious choice from the directors and the writers' side, that this is the way how they want to present the line of events in the film. And this is kind of a hard notion for me to make, but to me, Hellraiser 2 knowingly aims to be kind of a dream-like. It operates like a dream in many cases. It jumps around. There is some kind of a hidden logic behind how one scene transitions into the next, how the characters move, and even in how the characters appear in different places. Like in the end of the film, when Kirsty tricks Channard by wearing Julia's skin, and when you take a look on what angle Kirsty really would be appearing in that moment, you get the first shot, which is a shot at Tiffany from the front, and behind her you can see the torture rack, which transformed Channard into a Cenobite rising slowly, giving you kind of the implication that Kirsty would be emerging from that rack, but you can also know that that's in no way possible. Firstly, because Julia's skin is completely different place in hell. It's in one of the hallways, or it's laying in one of the hallways, and also because there would really be no way how Kirsty could get both inside and outside of the rack without being harmed. But Kirsty then appears from the back of Tiffany and grabs hold of her, and you are never actually shown from what location Kirsty comes into the scene. And there are a lot of these implications that are given to you, which are then not gone into full detail to explain to you how they exactly work. And
that's okay.
That's okay to me. I feel that once again, that is a conscious choice from the film's side, kind of in order to operate on this dream logic, to operate like a nightmare. And usually I'm against this when the films try to do this, or when this is being evoked in a defense of a horror film. This usually being the argument that is brought up, especially in relation to giallo films or Dario Argento's body of work, where you also often get bunch of stuff that does not make any sense, and then the audience comes with the defense that Argento works on dream logic, that he's trying to visualize his nightmares, which is something that Argento has stated that he's trying to do with his films. And I feel that, for example, in most of Argento's films, that effect does not play off. Like, it does not work, and it's just confusing and even a bit bullshit. But I still feel that it does work in Hellraiser 2. It works in this individual film. Like, this is one of those films that actually manages to pull off the nightmare aesthetics and manages to pull off the dream logic and use it effectively and use it as such that it's actually justified.
Yeah, there was one moment where I felt that, okay, this movie now needs to go on and start doing something new. At the moment when Julia and Dr. Channard are chatting in the hallways of hell about something. But then actually the film right away kicked into gear with something else. So I think the film does pull it off, the kind of the what the fuck factor, well throughout the film. And you're always kind of intrigued to find out more. Okay, what's next? What's behind room number 2 and then 3 and 4? Okay, interesting and fascinating. Visually, it's just so interesting that I don't even actually mind what is going on.
And the reason why I think that this film, that Hellraiser 2 has that effect on you, is that unlike, for example, most of Argento's films, which are in the end still very grounded in reality. Like, there are murder mysteries and there is a serial killer and there is these real life elements in his movies. Hellraiser 2, on the other hand, is on the complete opposite end. Most of the film takes place in hell. The characters are actively trying to reach or go into hell, and it goes kind of completely wild on its presentation.
I think that's it, because yeah, like you said, we are in hell, so you are more accepting of what you see because you don't know what it could be, so you're fine with it.
Yeah, and also because many of the events that Hellraiser 2 gives to you, they are in the end pretty extreme on their own right. They are either kind of a symbolic emotional torment, like for example in Tiffany's Hellscapes, where she kind of has to see symbolic presentations of the traumatic event of her life, or then they are kind of extremely violent scenarios, like Julia being pulled out of her skin and Frank having to peel off his skin. So, because it goes into this level, because it gets so wild on what it shows to you, that is, I would say that also factors into why you are so okay with the, well, they are in hell and this is just how hell operates excuse of the film, and why you are so accepting on the logic how the film operates and what it actually is giving to you.
Yeah, I was able to come across the uncut version of the film where Dr. Channard's head, for example, is cut in half on screen. That's how I remember it. I'm not sure what kind of versions are currently in circulation of the film, but I suppose we saw the same cut.
I would believe too.
Yeah, that being said, I don't even know which were the shots of concern for the censorships, but I would guess that would be one of them.
Well, that most definitely. Also, the man who cuts himself with the razor blade, the one who hallucinates the maggots eating his flesh. I would say that being the most grisliest image of the film, the most gnarliest moment. I also can see very much the censors having very much troubles with, well, most of what Julia does in the beginning of the film, Frank beating and tearing his skin off. Like, there is a lot of material that you can very easily see being too extreme for the censors of the time.
The Channard Cenobite wreaks havoc in a hospital inside of hell, or what seems like it. Kind of the reality is kind of mismatching with hell, I would say. Great quotes, and to think I hesitated, and Tiffany's first words were really well played for this film. Holy shit, upon seeing the updated Doctor.
Pretty much also her only quotes.
Yeah, well, the Doctor is taken care of with a kiss by Kirsty. dressed up in the skin of Julia. So Dr. Channard kind of commits suicide in a sense, because, well, he manages to attach a bunch of his knives to the ground, and then the big thing that is the big penis-looking fellatio kind of...
Yeah, the penis tentacle that Channard uses to move around.
Yeah, that then rips off the head of the poor doctor.
It is still hell of a effective shot of the penis tentacle kind of holding his severed head there in the air, and the blood and the meat chunks just kind of dripping off from it.
It's, I would say, definitely the most satisfying imagery of this film for the demented mind.
Altogether, I do feel that the cinematography in Hellraiser 2, it, in my opinion, it is some of the best I've seen in horror films.
I will say this, that I definitely noticed that this film has a lot of shots that have like artistic value to it very much. For example, the shot when Julia is in the house of Dr. Channard, dressed up in white, turns around towards the camera, and on the background you see the handprint on the white wall, and that Julia is wrapped up in bandages.
I was thinking the same image.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's so much about the DP here, but maybe more about the... Well, it's a combination of things, but definitely the production design and the props, the art department, it's all playing well together. So there's the Pinhead versus Dr. Channard. Just before that, Kirsty hands the picture of Pinhead to Pinhead, and then Pinhead remembers that he wasn't actually Pinhead before, they were all human. I'm not the biggest fan of this, at least this physical revelation of seeing the actual human bodies behind the monsters. Once again, this is not surprising coming from me at all, but I feel that it kind of knackers into the mystique. But that would have been okay-ish, were the franchise to be ending right here. But now that it carries on with actually Pinhead, then it's kind of like, we already know what you're about. And why in God's name are you continuing doing this? I don't remember what was the character motivation to keep killing. Well, he's still Pinhead and is still in hell, I guess. But it starts to kind of waver, like, I think this character story arc ended already. Kirsty shares a smile with the human Pinhead just before he dies, again, in hell.
Yeah, I do strongly agree with you on that notion. I too... I 100% feel that when it came to Hellraiser 3, Pinhead was kind of forcibly inserted and kept in the franchise. Like, you made the notion that from 3 and upwards, the franchise got milking and lazy, and with that sentiment, I would say that you can very well see the moment in history when the film rights went to Dimension Films.
Oh no, infamous Dimension.
Yeah, once again, and it does showcase very heavily in the type of film that Hellraiser 3 ended up being. And you see the whole grasping of straws aspect of them forcibly staying with Pinhead as the main franchise character in the sense how, like, what is the story and what is the excuse for Pinhead once again appearing in Hellraiser 3. The whole Elliot Spencer is the man and Pinhead is the demon dynamic that they forcibly now build up in Hell on Earth, just so that Pinhead as a character finally would have a motivation and finally would have an emotional stake in what happens in the films. And that's like to me that all really reads as a strong evidence for the fact that even though Pinhead himself is a magnificent character, he is not someone on whom you should build a franchise on. Like, they're just, like, the Pinhead you have on these first 2 films is basically a bureaucrat of hell. He's someone who is emotionally removed from what happens in the movie. And because of this, I do feel that Hellraiser 2 still handled Pinhead correctly.
Yeah.
By not really using him. By revealing his backstory and kind of closing his arc through him finally remembering that he once was a human being, just like everybody else. And it really, like, I would say, after the first film, that is kind of the best and pretty much all you can do with the character of Pinhead, because since he's not like Freddy Krueger, who is constantly being driven by this need for revenge or need for havoc, because he doesn't have that emotional core in his being. He's someone who you can't just, bring back from film to film to do evil things. And if you have a monster that you can't use that way, it either forces you to get rid of the monster like they do in Hellraiser 2, where Pinhead gets killed off, or then you just have to be incredibly inventive in the excuses you use to bring that character back.
And there are a lot of horror sequels, mainly the first sequel of any horror franchise, where they instinctively and very understandably start to build more flesh around their characters to keep the story going. In some cases, those additions to the character of the antagonist, for example, seem forced, sometimes even not unnecessary, but you can understand why they made that decision. Like Halloween 2, for example, 1991.
Like Halloween 2, where it's established that Michael has some kind of a psychic need or some kind of a deep emotional need to kill his entire family, and he somehow knows that Laurie Strode is his last remaining sister, so he has to target Laurie.
Yeah.
It worked there. Like, you can see that it's been forcibly built, but it still worked there. It doesn't work in, for example, in Halloween 4, where then now is Jamie, and Pinhead once again has that same drive. Now I have to kill Jamie.
Yeah, that force of nature element was what I believe was driving the franchise the best. That this is just completely without motive. It's like the wind. It just is how it is. But then you give this golds and all that nonsense. Anyway, in Hellraiser 2, I feel that the way that the story was carried is acceptable. It's okay, and I think it completes the story pretty well. And by the end of the film, you feel that that's it. But no, they keep pushing like 10 sequels after.
Yeah, and you can also see that the same effect in the sequels. In a way, how completely they then disregard what happened in Hellraiser 1 and 2. Because Hellraiser 3, it almost completely forgets the films that happened previously. Hellraiser 4, it still tries. It still tries to carry on the previous movies within its core, with some of the themes that Bloodline has, and from Hellraiser 4 onwards, even that attempt is completely lost.
Yeah, I felt that Hellraiser 3 just might be, I don't know if it's the best after the second one, but definitely after the 4 feels it loses its direction.
Yeah, it becomes a series of standalone films that has Pinhead and has Puzzle Box and has some Hellraiser in it. Not all of them are completely terrible. Like, I am willing to defend some individual films there, but you can notice that the sense of continuation has been lost. And the whole idea that there are these events that have happened before, and there is this kind of a universe that has these certain themes. That has been more or less lost in the sequels after Hellraiser 4.
So, still for the trivia-minded, there were sources saying that the ending was planned to go a little bit differently in Hellraiser 2 when Kirsty and Tiffany run from Channard. The girls would have run into a doctor and a nurse, and the doctor wants to know what they're doing, and suddenly the doctor and the nurse transform into Pinhead and the female Cenobite, and Kirsty and Tiffany continue their running. The scene was dropped since it was thought that Pinhead appearing as a doctor would kind of confuse the viewers, and because of the special effects didn't turn out so well here. But there was a publicist photographer at the set at the time and took photos of the Cenobites dressed as these surgeons for the scene. So some of these photos were used as a VHS or DVD cover art, which set the rumors blazing about this great lost scene, and parts of the scene can be seen in some trailers. There's also a reveal of a scene where the Chatterer is stopping an elevator with his hand and jumps at Kirsty and Tiffany. And it is my understanding that the lost scene was found on a VHS work print, and it was supposed to be released on a Blu-ray release of the film, which was actually released only about a month ago. It's on Amazon, for example, so you can go for it. And I'm not sure if it's now in there as an extra or not, but there's plenty of extras. Well, as the final scene, we get back to the doctor's flat. It's all packed up, and the men are taking care of the doctor's stuff, moving it away, and one of the men gets sucked into the mattress, and a huge wooden ornament tree or the swinging torture rack appears out of the mattress. Apparently, the Chatterer actor Nicholas Vince, once again, he received a hook to the jaw while filming the scene upon his own request to make it appear a little bit more exciting. Finished by the maggot-eating dragon man with the famous line, "What is your pleasure, sir?"
Perhaps the hokiest effect that they have in the film.
I like it.
I'm kind of a mixed here, because the effect of the torture rack rising from inside the mattress does not work like at all. You can clearly see how the effect has been combined, and also in the torture rack there are several objects where you clearly can actually see that those are rubber masks and plastic toys.
Yeah.
Like I like the concept of the torture rack or whatever pillar of flesh it's supposed to be. It's in the end it is supposed to be the same statue that they have in Hellraiser 3 with Pinhead stuck in it. But the rubber masks, the plastic toys, and overall the quality of the effect of the totem rising from the mattress, to me it is a bit too much when combined together. It's a great idea, but the execution, like it's the last moment in a marathon run, and then during your last two steps you kind of stumble.
Okay, I felt it was kind of the topping there, not in the sense of effect wizardry, but there was so many crazy scenes going on that it's kind of a proper way.
There were a lot of great elements in it, and it did close the film quite effectively with the Dragon Man being the final face you get, and him saying the line, "What's your pleasure, sir?" Like it closes the film very well, but I like you can even see the spray paint lines in the totem, especially in the DVD Blu-ray version. Like once again, the goddamn VHS did save something. Did save some of the effects here with its crappy image quality, but with the Blu-ray or DVD release of the film, you can see every single line of paint so clearly that the hokiness just comes blazing through.
It often feels like when you watch a Blu-ray, it feels like you are watching people playing on a set because you kind of see everything. But also, it is how apparently the director intended this to be seen. So, and I'm fine with that. I love that clarity. I have no problem of enjoying these late 80s horror films with the clarity.
To me, it's a mixed bag. In some cases, I strongly feel that because of the crappy image quality, the VHS version in the end actually enhances the visual experience, making the film kind of even more terrifying.
Well, yeah, maggot-eating dragons, swinging torture racks, and Leviathan symbols hanging in the sky of hell. I feel like nothing I've said during this episode about the film makes any goddamn sense. So this is truly a fucked up film experience. Very creative and interesting, and definitely something that you have to witness for yourself to kind of get what the hell is going on.
Yeah, it's in the end it comes together in an effect that you really don't see that often.
Being a British film production, actually, this was filmed at Pinewood. Okay, favorite performance.
In my end, it goes to Kenneth Graham, who played Dr. Channard.
Yeah, that's hard to argue with. This is a classical Shakespearean actor. He delivers these kind of poetic lines really well. Overall performance really absorbing.
He does, and he manages to kind of really well pull off that the person whose need for knowledge and need for answers pushes him way too far into becoming a monster.
Favorite scene?
Well, this goes, and this might be a weird one from me, but it goes into that one moment when Cenobites band together to defend Kirsty from Channard. Not the actual fight itself, but that moment when Pinhead finally remembers that he used to be a person and then kind of forming the line with other Cenobites in defense of Kirsty.
Okay, I would go with the ripped off head of Dr. Channard in the end. It's now my strongest image also of this film. Favorite quote?
It actually would be Channard's first opening monologue. Goes for fucking forever, but still is great stuff on every line. The mind is a labyrinth, ladies and gentlemen, a puzzle. And while the paths of the brain are plainly visible, its ways deceptively apparent. Its destinations are unknown, its secrets still secrets, and if we are honest, it is the lure of the labyrinth that draws to our chosen field. To unlock those secrets, others have been here before us and have left us signs, but we as explorers of the mind must devote our lives and energies to going further, to tread the unknown corridors in order to find ultimately the final solution. We have to see, we have to know.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's also a bloody long one.
I kind of liked all the one-liners of the Channard Cenobite, but maybe I'll just go with his entrance line. And to think, I hesitated.
Yeah, Channard most definitely is the kind of a best one-liner guy of the film. That there is surprisingly a lot of great quotes and one-liners in Hellbound.
Kind of thought that you would maybe hate these and it would go too much the Roger Moore direction here. Well, then again, Roger Moore hasn't played a Cenobite, so...
Yeah, and I do, because they use them they spare them for certain characters. And these are characters, well, mostly Cenobites who altogether in their expressions are someones who say extremely little and they always have this weight on every word they say. Like every sentence that they mutter, they have a meaning and they aim to use as few words as possible to make their intent known. I actually do think that because of this, because the one-liners are given to mostly to Cenobites, it actually becomes a strong element of the film, and it becomes one of the film's strengths. Like that way of speaking is something that helps the Cenobites to become as strong and as iconic as they in the end ended up being.
I noticed it too, that there is not that much of dialogue, and when it's laid out, it's clear as day. This is one of those very few movies in this podcast where I didn't stop the image hundreds of times to take notes and take quotes down and kind of decipher what the hell is this and how does it connect to that. It's very straightforward and, in a way, really enjoyable in that sense.
And it is surprising that it is a horror movie that actually shows to you that even one-liners can actually be used as a great narrative tool if used correctly. Like, one-liner usually is seen as something that is comedic, and it is there for the humor's sake. Usually, even when the two of us pick up one-liners in the podcast, we usually take the ones that are somehow humorous, where you can somehow either they have a joke in them or you can twist them and use them as jokes. But Hellbound kind of it is stuck full of one-liners, but well, none of them really kind of is empty of a meaning.
Favorite kill, Dr. Channard. If you count it as a kill when he's destroyed in hell.
Yeah. Also, if you count it as a kill, my pick is the self-cutting man.
Okay.
Who in the end actually does get killed. So, but yeah, that image of the poor patient succumbed into his hallucinations and just, constantly and repeatedly cutting himself with the razor blade. It still is like it was one of the images that most strongly stuck to my mind when I originally saw the film, and I still think that is one of the images that mostly speaks out and best describes Hellbound.
Well, if you were given a box that would open you to view Hellraiser 3, would you do it?
I already have that in the sense that I have the VHS copy.
Oh, still haven't burned it.
No, I paid good money for it, so I'm gonna bloody well keep it.
20 years ago.
It also is essential part of my four film VHS Hellraiser release box set, which has the face of Pinhead in the backlinings of the VHS covers, so I can't burn it.
Okay, the first shot that comes to mind
would be that shot from the side when now Cenobite Dr. Channard is traveling through hell with his weird penis tentacle.
Yeah, that when once again the head is cut in half. That is some great A material, and it's also my favorite shot as it happens. And for you, sir,
it would be from that Cenobites defending Kirsty scene, that one wide shot that shows you all the four Cenobites after they have kind of formed that line of defense.
And we have one new quickie here to surprise you. Favorite moment of erotica in the film. Okay, just kidding.
God damn it. We just watched Hellraiser II. We don't need to actually travel to hell itself.
What took you out?
Nothing really. If I would have to pinpoint something, it would be that torture rack meat totem effect during the last 5 seconds of the film.
Well, there was a very, 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 very short moment in time where I actually didn't drop out of the film, but I was starting to feel, okay, like I mentioned, that this film needs to start moving on into some direction right now, here to grab the viewer. It's the moment when we cut from Julia and Jannard wandering around in the endless hallways, and Kirsty and Tiffany doing the same. I don't know, I was just getting more flashbacks of different horror films. In this case, it was taking something to the direction of the goddamn abysmally terrible sequels to Nightmare on Elm Street. Maybe like
which are not as bad as you make them out to be.
Lord, I have some deep disgust for some of those sequels. Don't tell me that we're going to watch them.
Well, it's completely up to you, man. I most definitely am not going to push yet another franchise for us to marathon through.
So it's gonna be the masochist in me who is going to do that eventually, probably. Yeah, what pulled you in?
It would be from the very opening of the film when Elliot Spencer has just opened the box and he's starting to turn into Pinhead. And there are all these shots of his head being sliced slowly open and him screaming in pain. And then there is that one moment when there is the extreme close-up to his mouth and teeth. And you see that he's actually smiling at this point. And that kind of that moment when you notice that the character is changing and he's now actually starting to get pleasure and enjoyment out of this extreme pain and torment. To me, that was actually the first time when this movie really clued me in.
Funny how many parallels are actually here when compared to the first one. Like the first one, this opens with the box, somebody trying to decrypt it, and then getting fucked, basically.
It is, in many ways, this is very similar film to the original. Not in the most kind of obvious, most surface level, because these are, make no mistake, these are two very different type of movies. But upon a closer inspection, there are a lot of elements and a lot of ways how these actually mirror each other.
There was a lot of things that pulled me in, but if something to pick from all of this visual extravaganza explosion, once again it would go into the direction of Jannard when he's approaching his victims, for example, in this hospital room. And we get a close-up of his face. And he's doing this. That's some creepy stuff right there. What would you change in the film? Scissors of the Sacrilege.
You know, I actually wouldn't change anything in the film.
I wasn't too big fan of the revelations of the background of Pinhead, but once again I can see why it was done. But at the same time, maybe I should... Yeah.
Yeah, I on my end, I actually did like the revelation quite a lot.
Oh, maybe I would remove the moment where we see everyone's faces. Thought it was humanizing these monsters a little bit too much.
Then again, I once again, I'm completely on the opposite end. I really think that they really did deserve to be humanized as they were. And I think that last shot of the Chatterer, which shows that originally he was just some little kid, was once again kind of really hammering down the themes of the film and how this need for extreme experiences is something that is not simply tied into, you know, you being a man or you being at certain age or any of these surface level things, but instead it's something that is much deeper inside your psyche, and because of that it's much more dangerous.
That or the poor bastard just was playing with it and wasn't expecting to have any pleasures out of the, or any that kind of pleasures from solving the box.
That, yeah, it once again goes in the direction of where how much of the Hellraiser lore is Clive Barker's vision and how much is because of people who came after him. Because people not completely accidentally, without any kind of a desire to open the box, opening the box or finding some pathway completely by random accident into the hell, that is actually something that became a pretty big point of the Hellraiser mythos in the end. It has been a running theme in many of the Hellraiser stories, where a character simply ends up in situation and without even knowing at all and without having any kind of a deeper drive to even try to achieve anything, just completely accidentally happens to open one of the puzzles that leads into hell.
You really know you're watching Hellbound Hellraiser 2 when...
The bugs are bugging you, and you start to think that they are forming a maze.
You really know you're watching Hellbound Hellraiser 2 when you will keep processing it for a few days. 3 adjectives to describe the film.
Mine would be dreamlike, visionary, and wild.
Visionary, head-busting, and fucking dark.
That it is.
Which is probably the reason why I have voiced out before that I don't like these films. But, you know, as I have mentioned in the previous Hellraiser episode, I have kind of changed my direction with these 2 originals, in the sense that I do enjoy them, actually. But they are not something that you can pop on, like every other.
No, these are films that are best reserved for special occasions, when you kind of are in the mindset that you are ready to watch these.
Yeah, because you will be a little bit exhausted after watching this. Henrik, would you recommend Hellbound Hellraiser 2?
I most definitely would. I do think that it's kind of a groundbreaking in the way how it deals with the subject matter of hell. The first films are together kind of being revolutionary in that sense, and I do think that this also kind of this has some themes that I think are very deeply tackled on, and that some even hit very close to home for me personally. And I'm in the kind of in the disgusting minority of Hellraiser fans who actually think that as much as I love the original film, I still kind of think that this is even better than the original Hellraiser.
Okay, well, this is really shocking in this podcast, but I have to jump into the same wagon with you and say that even if it's a guilty pleasure or whatnot, I feel that this has a lot more variety, many more things to chew on. I feel that it's more relaxed in many areas, less restrained, like in the soundtrack and the visuals, and it's just having more fun with the elements that were established before. It was well planned out, it seems. There are many new angles that are very inventive, and characters like the Dr. Jannard, which I enjoy so much. I enjoy the visuals of the hell. I even think that the dialogue is more enjoyable in this one. It has this kind of as mentioned, kind of a what the fuck element to it when you get to the hell scenes, and there are many things that are not fleshed out, and that's understandable and that's okay. It's what it's doing on purpose, I feel. And I feel that the area where they are playing, it's obviously there's more room to roam around in the original. In the first one, you're just inside the same house basically most of the time. I feel that we're having a lot more fun here. I feel that it's a good sequel and it works. And recommendation and the best Hellraiser for me.
Yeah, it manages to expand the elements of the first one.
Yeah.
What was presented to you first time in the original, this takes those elements and it takes them further. In a way, it brings them home and showcase them to you in their home turf.
Yeah, my understanding from the reviews of the film is that the critics were not very much, I guess, fans of the same things that we are willing to, I don't know, overlook, but accept, and maybe take a different kind of a take on it. The fact that we go to hell and there's a lot of elements that are left unexplored further, like the ghosts or the whatever they were on these platforms, these dead people. So that's what some of the reviewers were saying, that this is something that the film is starting to lose direction. Maybe too many points of interest. For me, no.
I kind of felt that a lot of the critics were kind of too fixed on the visual violence. and the amount of blood and gore that you see in the film, and they kind of got stuck with that, and in the end only saw the violence and saw the visual elements of the film, and kind of missed the themes.
All right. Anything else, or should I hang the lab coat on the wall?
I guess we can just, hang our coats at this point.
We have such websites to show you after all, such as our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. That's the show, boys and girls and in-betweeners. See you next week.
Until then.
And it is my understanding that there was a VHS and there was supposed to be VHS work